light I've got is this little one that gives me a glory. It's not a real glory. I'm not that enlightened yet. Ambitions. I wanted to invite you to take part in what I call the 7-night Imagine a Better Life challenge. So, what is the 7 Nights Imagination Challenge? Oh, it's very, very, very simple. Every night, for 7 nights, you imagine a future scenario that you would like to experience. That's it. Every night for 7 nights, you imagine a future scenario that you would like to experience. And I think you should. You know, here's the thing. Imagination, it's vastly underrated. Or maybe it's not so underrated when it comes to people paying lip service to it and so on, but in people actually engaging in becoming better at imagining things. I mean, if you ask me, I think it should be taught in the schools. It ain't. So the way I think about it is this. Basically, you can have 2 approaches to life. You can be determined. You can have your way of living being determined by past events, as if the past was the cause that caused you to live in a certain way. Of course, it can never be the cause. It will always be you responding to past events. But there is another way, and that is to respond to the future, to future events. No, the future hasn't happened yet. So if we want it to be different from what it is today, we need to have we need to imagine something. We need to imagine something first. And once we've imagined a possible future, something that we really want, then we can start to organize our actions consciously and unconsciously around it. A lot of people talk about it as if it was something God-given, but it ain't. It's something you learn. I think one of my favorite examples is Nikola Tesla. Sure, I'm absolutely sure he was born with a brain that was different from mine. But he trained his imagination. Every night before he went to sleep, he trained his imagination to escape his imagination, because what would happen would be that he would see stuff in front of him, and those images would sometimes disturb him. So in order not to be bothered by them, he would start imagining stuff. He would imagine going on a journey, meeting someone, going to a foreign country, meeting someone, engaging in dialogue. And these imaginary journeys, they became very real to him. Now, he did this every night, in, day out for years. And then he developed a power of concentration and imagination that was so strong that he could build his machines in his imagination before he built them in the real world. Oh, and in case you are not familiar with Tesla, he's the guy who developed the kind of electricity that you're using when you charge your phone, the kind of electricity that probably is powering the light bulbs around you right now, amongst many other things. So the man was a genius, right? But my point here is that he developed his powers of imagination. It's something you can learn to do better. Now, in one sense, it's really easy. It's simple and easy to become better at imagining things. But here's the thing, it's not gonna happen by itself. You actually have to do it. And you really have to do it. Because, like I said, do you want to live a life that's like driven from events in the past? Or do you want to be like organizing yourself because things that you want and desire in the future? No, I'm serious. I am actually very serious, even if I'm laughing. Because imagination is such a key skill, and you really want it. So, I'm really a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he's one of the people who's been fairly successful in this world, and he also speaks about the mental game he played in order to actually achieve his successes. Now, when he became governor, some journalist asked him this, Mr. Schwarzenegger, isn't it very unusual and new for you to walk around in these corridors of power? And Schwarzenegger answered, I can't do his Austrian dialect. I wish I could, but I can't. But his answer was this, no, this is not unusual to me. This is not new to me, because this is what I've been imagining every single day for a decade. Maybe he didn't say exactly that, but I'm paraphrasing from memory, but it captures the gist of what he said. So, how can imagination be helpful in helping you create the life that you want and desire? Well, first off, let me tell you first, very frankly, I'm not a fan of law of attraction stuff. The idea that, I imagine something, the universe listens, and boom, it sends it and delivers it. No, that does not fit my experience. Okay, so the question then remains, why is imagination so incredibly useful? Well, couple of different things. The moment you know what you want and have imagined it thoroughly, then you can actually plan and do in order to get it. But perhaps more importantly, once you imagine the future scenario, a scenario that you really want, then when you imagine it, when you really imagine it, then you know who you are in that future scenario. And this new you has much greater chance of getting that thing which you desire. Okay, so I hope that I have convinced you that you must take on this 7 night Imagine a Better Life challenge. Because it may be just 7 nights, but the thing is, 7 nights can be go a very long way. You know, much can happen in a day, much can happen in a night too. 7 nights can go a long way of establishing the habit of imagination. So, how do you do it? It's very simple. First step, you need to get a tiny notebook or a post-it, or personally I'm a big fan of just index cards. And on the first page of the notebook, on the post-it, or on the index card, you draw 7 little boxes. 7 little boxes. And you number them. You number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why numbers? Well, you don't want to do MTM Monday, Tuesday, because you never know if you'll have to skip a day. Life happens. You happen to life, but sometimes life happens to you. And it's not like life happening makes you forget all that you've learned. So you really want this to be 1 to 7 little boxes. And the reason you want this physical object is it's just so that you can tick the boxes once you've been successful at doing the task. Because this anchors it into reality. And then you just place that notebook or that post-it note or that index card or whatever you choose to use. You place it on your nightstand table. And every morning when you've actually done the little the imagination in the evening, you check one box, and then you know that you did it. Okay, so why are we doing this practice in the evening, the practicing of the imagination? For three reasons. It's good to utilize the hypnagogic state. That's where imagination very often happens anyway. It's also good because if you imagine something like the last thing you do before you fall asleep, it's really good because that heightens the chance that you will actually dream about it during the night. This reminds me, there is this cool comic book that I read when I was a kid with Elric of Melniboné, the sorcerer magician, Michael Moorcock's creation. And in this comic book, Elric goes to sleep, and in his dreams he has certain adventures. And then he wakes up, he remembers nothing. But he has learned something during those adventures. So he dreams something, and in that dream he picks up the runic language of the dragons or something like that. But then the next day he can actually speak with the dragons. There's a third reason also, and today it's a life that is so full of distractions and disruptions. These are not good for imagination. That's why it's a very good thing to select the moment when your head hits the pillow as the time when you start imagining things. And whenever you want to establish a new habit or start a new habit, it's a very, very good thing if you can anchor it, so to speak, to a specific trigger point. Okay, so step 2. You go to bed, you hit the pillow or you close your eyes and you start to imagine stuff that you want. And what you imagine is a future experience that you would like to have. And you imagine it in a specific way. Because it's very important here that you include in your imagination your own physical movements. It's important that you include in your imagination the things that you see and also the things that you hear. So this isn't just visualizing, right? This is Vakugizing. And Vakugizing, I like to say, it's more than a slogan. It means that you circle through the different sensory systems: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, VAKOG, VAKOG, Vakugizing. Now, most of the time you'll be using vision, auditory, and things you feel. And like I said, when it comes to the things you feel, it's one of the most important things that you want to have is how you move. Let that be part of your imagination. So, just as an example, let's say you want to have a new apartment to live in. And this may be a short-term dream, this may be a long-term dream, or it may just be a daydream. But you just imagine, you go to bed, you lean your head against the pillow, you close your eyes, you make that breath out just before you fall asleep, and you start imagining. And I like to think about it this way. Do you remember those old little comic books with Little Nemo where the bed gets legs and it transports him to a different country, Little Nemo in Dreamland? So while you lie there with your eyes closed, you can just imagine that the bed has been transported magically and mystically into that wonderful apartment, just where you want it, across Central Park with a beautiful view. And the first thing you imagine is lifting your feet outside of the bed, putting them down on the floor, noticing what the floor looks like. Notice the feeling of your feet against the floor. Notice any sounds. You walk up to the bedroom door. You reach out with your hand and you feel the handle and you feel the movement your arm is making. You open, move through, close. You go to the window. You put your hand on the window. You feel the feeling of the movement of your hand and arm. You feel the feeling of the structure or lack of structure, since it's glass, beneath your fingers, and the temperature of the glass. And you look out and you see what you see through the window. You walk around in the home, in the apartment, and you notice what you experience with each of your senses. What you see, what you hear, and what you feel, and how you move, and how you breathe now that you have this apartment. Okay, so that would be one example, right? The important thing here is just this. You select a future experience that you want to have, in this case owning an apartment just across the Central Park on Manhattan. I mean, New York, come on, it used to be the greatest city on earth. Not so sure anymore. But anyways, the point is this. Once you've selected some such future experience that you would like to have, you imagine it in every detail, including how you move your body, what you see, and what you hear. Or maybe there is a pilgrimage that you would like to make at some point in time. So then, again, imagine visiting the sacred place, according to whichever tradition it's sacred, depends on you. And who knows what you may experience inside. But you can imagine the movements you will make, how you will move your body when you leave. You can imagine the structure of the floor, the surfaces that you're walking on, and the walls. And you can imagine what you will see, the temple, and leaving the temple. And you can imagine what it would feel like leaving the temple. And of course we have the option of exploring in our imagination the future with our partners. Because, hey, listen, either you're single, then you may want to have a partner, or you may have a partner and there is room for improvement in the relationship, or you may have a partner and it's perfect already. But then maybe there is room for some variety inside and respecting the boundaries of the relationship, all right? And if you don't want a partner, hey, solitude is bliss. So just imagine being in the future, experiencing and enjoying a situation and interaction with your partner. Notice the look on their face. What is it about the way they look that lets you know that this is actually in accordance with what you wanted? And notice your own face. What is the expression you're making with your own face? How does it feel using the muscles of your face in that way? How are you moving? What notice the way you're breathing now that your relationship has suddenly improved. And maybe the two of you engage in some activity that is an outward sign of a relationship, of an improved relationship, or of variety in your relationship. And just notice, what do you see? What do you hear? And how are you moving your body? Okay, so that's the gist of it. Every night when you fall asleep, or before you fall asleep, you spend a little bit of time imagining things in the future that you want to have happen. Imagining things is not a commitment, it's just imagining things. And when the morning comes, you check the box so that you know that you imagined something the previous evening. During the day, you may of course imagine as much as you want, and it may be a good thing to start thinking about what you would like to imagine, what could be useful to imagine. And it may be a good thing to start preparing a little bit for the imagination sessions by thinking about what is it you want? What is it you want in life? What is it you want to imagine having happen? Okay, so I really hope that you accept this 7-day Imagine a Better Life challenge. You may just surprise yourself in terms of the effects this simple exercise has. And if you like this, I would sure appreciate it if you like it, and also share it if you know someone who may benefit from actually engaging in this exercise, from actually taking part of this 7-night imagination challenge. And if you want to learn more, you may consider following me on Patreon, where we actually explore the concept of imagination and what you can do in your imagination much more in depth. And I'm really curious, if you do this and you have some interesting experience that you would like to share it. I'm really curious